Uh, Dr. Namgyal has more than 20 years of teaching and research experience. Currently, he teaches at the Center for Inner Asian Studies. He specializes in Buddhist logic and epistemology and Trans-Himalayan region. His areas of interest are Buddhism, Tibetan and Himalayan studies, besides having interest in Inner Asia. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. Respected Professor Amitabh Matu, Dean SIs, Professor Preeti Singh, convener of the program, professors, and their students. It's a very interesting topic, no doubt. Why Inner Asia is matter. Of course, my first straightforward answer to this argument is yes, Inner Asia do matters. As what Honorable Chancellor Sabalji mentioned just a couple of days before in the inauguration. I think.
Speak into the mic.
Yeah. Okay. As Prof. Okay, yeah. Sure.
Remember, you were speaking to
Sure, sir.
Namgyal, you're speaking to YouTube, to the world.
Yeah, sure.
You have to be loud enough.
So in Inner Asia, why Inner Asia matter? Yes, Inner Asia do matter, as rightly Professor Honorable Chancellor Sibalji said in the inaugural meeting couple of days that yes, absolutely, international area studies matter. Yes, absolutely, it is matter. So on the same, I would also like to say that yes, Inner Asia is matter. So without much, we have two speakers, Professor Sharad Soni and Professor Mahesh Debata, who will be speaking on different aspects of Inner Asia. We will make you understand why Inner Asia matter while taking different aspects of Inner Asian studies. So without wasting much time, I just give you the crux of the Inner Asian, why Inner Asia matters on the theme of the deliberation. So it's quite difficult for everyone, especially for students, to understand Inner Asia in one particular way, the way they understand the others center or subject of different aspect. But yes, Inner Asia in that way, it's little bit complex. You have to understand the different aspect of Inner Asia, and then you will understand what Inner Asia is. So I have very shortly divided the, whatever you may call it, the definition of Inner Asia, though it's a different usage or different in different contexts. But to make it easier, I have projected the Inner Asia into two core perspectives. One is the historical perspective, the other one is modern perspective, or whatever you may call it, interpretation from geographical scope of strategic importance. So Inner Asia is often referred as a central or Inner Eurasia is a region historically recognized for its pivotal role in the movement of people, goods, ideas across continent. It's called inner because it lies at the heart of Eurasia, connecting the region like East Asia, South Asia, West Asia, and Europe. It serves as a key transit zone for trade, multicultural, multi-exotic center for the world's earliest civilization that formed first and later torn off with different missionaries, traders, and pilgrimage from different parts of the world, as Chinese from the east, Mongolia from the north, Iranian from the west, and Indian and Tibetan from the south. It has been a buffer zone for long. And if I interpret the modern perspective of Inner Asia, in that context, modern world, Inner Asia is surrounded by areas such as Central Asia region, Mongolia, Xinjiang, Tibet. Broadly, it includes the steppe of Mongolia, the mountain of the Pamistantian Karakoram, the desert of Xinjiang, and the high altitude plateau of Tibet. This geographical diversity has historically made a corridor for trade route, including the Silk Road, and a contested zone for imperial conflict. When I say in the present scenario of the Inner Asia, then in that context, it's a strategic location for vital transcontinental project like China Belt Road Initiative, which seek to integrate Inner Asia into a global economic network. The region proximity to major powers such as China, Russia, India underscore its importance in geopolitics. Additionally, it is a critical transit zone for energy pipeline, military logistic trade, making it indispensable for global connectivity. The revival of the Silk Route concept through China Belt Road Initiative has connected Inner Asia to a global through the trade and politics. So therefore, Inner Asia occupies a unique position in the global political landscape, characterized by its resources, wealth, strategic location, and cultural diversity. It's both region of opportunity and conflict, shaped by historical legacies and modern power dynamic. With this, I request the first presenter, Professor Soni, to deliver.
Thank you, Chair. Am I audible? Yeah. Thank you so much. Let me also thank our Dean, Professor Amitabh Mattu, and Professor Preeti Singh and her team for giving me this opportunity to share my point of views on the theme that we are discussing in this Kunzru Memorial Lectures. I would begin by saying that Inner Asia as a region has its own historical and contemporary importance, as this is the region which witnessed, number one, the founding of the first nomadic empire by the Huns, and it was during this region that the first Buddhist connect between India and this part of the world has been discovered. Number two, this is the region which witnessed the signing of the first treaty between any European and Asian powers, that is Tsarist Russia and Manchu China, and that was the Treaty of Nachins, signed in 1689, which paved the way for the annexation of some areas of Greater Mongolia either into Russia or China. Number three, this is the region which saw the establishment of the largest ever contiguous land empire in the world under the leadership of Genghis Khan in the 13th century. Number four, this is the region from where several polities dispersed from their own principalities in adjoining areas. For example, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz and Uzbeks in Central Asia, Buryat Mongol area and Tuva area in Russian Siberia, I would say, Inner Mongolia, which was incorporated in China in 1634, as well as Western Mongolia, on which today's Xinjiang developed as part of China. Number five, this is the region which witnessed Cold War in Asia between Soviet Union and China until Gorbachev announced its Vladivostok initiative in 1986 to normalize relations with China. Number six, this is the region which is not just an inner hinterland of Russia and China, but itself constitutes a sphere or center which has its particular historical dynamics in terms of its geocultural setting, such as nomadism, Buddhism, and pastoral economy, horse culture, which is still the identity of their people but with modern outlook in this globalized world. And lastly, this is the region which in geographical parlance is described as a much more comprehensive belt of Central and Northern Asia. Today, large part of Inner Asia is now no longer peripheral but intermediate between centers of gravity in Russia and China. A case in point here is Mongolia, the role of which has become important as part of area studies of a larger Inner Asian region. It has for quite some time now occupied a significant place in India's foreign policy, both in terms of geopolitics as well as culture based on Buddhism. But In the contemporary scenario, given that the global geopolitical restructuring, especially in Eurasia and the Indo-Pacific, has had a significant impact on regional order. Inner Asia in general and Mongolia in particular feel the vulnerability to changes in the external environment in terms of geopolitics. So what I would like to do is to focus on Mongolia as to what it has been doing so far, as the larger question why Inner Asia matters is concerned. As in the past, a protection of sovereignty and territorial integrity amid a challenging regional security environment is still the main priority of contemporary Mongolia. Its foreign policy therefore focuses on maneuvering between the two strategies: the good neighbor policy with Russia and China, and the third neighbor policy with other influential countries of the region and the world. But a remarkable turnaround has also been seen in Mongolia's relationship with its third neighbors, when Mongolia entered into a strategic partnership with them, beginning with Japan in 2010, followed by India in 2015, then USA in 2019, then South Korea in 2021, and the latest one is Germany in 2024. What has been seen is that the ongoing geopolitical competition between Russia and the West in Eurasia, as well as the growing tensions between China and the United States in the Indo-Pacific, have encouraged Mongolia to expand or strengthen its strategic third neighbor partnerships. Hence, Mongolia's expansion of such strategic partnerships remain crucial, as this geopolitical balancing act strengthens Mongolia's role in navigating Inner Asia's power struggles amid shifting influences on the regional order, with Russia and China trying to be on the driver's seat in this part of the world. As of now, the common factor that could bind Mongolia with all the 5 strategic third neighbors, bilaterally and multilaterally, is how to cooperate in ensuring Mongolia's political stability, economic developments, feasible security surroundings, and forward-looking foreign policy strategies. And these are crucial for not only keeping Mongolia's democratic credential intact, but also keeping pace with new developments in the region. For Mongolia, diversifying, trade and investment, in addition to seeking security assurances, as well as educational and defense cooperation, seems to be an important part for the success of such a strategy of strategic partnership. It may also be noted that the strategic third neighbor partners cannot expect Mongolia to be separated from Russia and China, but their active involvement may help increase Mongolia's leverage in dealing with these two traditional neighbors. As this year 2025, a little bit about India I'm coming now. As this year 2025 marks the 70th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Mongolia and India, there are reasons to believe that their bilateral ties in the form of a strategic partnership have moved forward tremendously, especially in the past decade. To that end, we must remember that the spread of Indian culture and civilization in various parts of the world, especially in Asia, has been the most remarkable aspect of India's contact with the outside world. What is striking is that, wherever it is spread, there had been voluntary acceptance of cultural and spiritual values of India. And hence, even today, one can witness the strong influence of Indian culture and civilization on several Asian societies. The spirituality or spiritually high, a strategic partnership between India and Mongolia today owes much to the great Indian civilization that has had tremendous influence on Mongolia, so much so that it helped shape the Mongolian culture based on shared values. Notwithstanding Mongolia geographically being a distant neighbor of India, today democracy and Buddhism are the two key elements that bind the two countries, in addition to soft power diplomacy that provides an extra edge in strengthening their strategic partnership. It was during the 60th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries when the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi decided to undertake a visit to Ulaanbaatar in 2015. This was the first ever visit by any Indian Prime Minister to Mongolia. And it was during that time that the bilateral ties were elevated from comprehensive partnership to the level of a strategic partnership. This was more so because India began to be considered by Mongolia as both its spiritual as well as third neighbor, while Mongolia was recognized as an integral part of India's Act East policy in order to realize, New Delhi's strategic vision in East Asia, in particular Northeast Asia. Since then, the two sides made several commitments by concluding a number of agreements and MOUs aimed at building confidence for a more convenient bilateral relationship. India's investment of $1.7 billion, credit line in the construction of the first ever oil refinery in Mongolia, which is going to be operational by 2026, is a welcome move, I would say, to support Mongolia's endeavor to create a business-friendly foreign investment regime. Once the production starts from the oil refinery, it can reduce Mongolia's petroleum dependence on Russia by almost 70%. Today, Mongolia is dependent on Russia for more than 90% of its petroleum products. So given the huge potential to collaborate in the agriculture sector, the two sides are involved in deeper and closer cooperation in animal husbandry, production of dairy products, sharing of expertise and know-how, technology transfer, and other forms of cooperation. I would also say, apart from tourism destination, Mongolia being a tourism destination for Indians also, in recent years, there are a lot of initiatives are being taken. So in addition to tourism destination, Mongolia has rich mineral deposits, including radioactive minerals, I think could help power India's low carbon growth, while India could help Mongolia in developing indigenous capabilities and economic opportunities in the mining sector. I would also say that the strategic partnership in recent years has helped deepen their defense cooperation as well. Besides exploring potential for tie-ups in areas like the civil nuclear sector. Exploitation of Mongolia's vast uranium reserves, that is around 68,000 tons, can be one area where India could be an important partner in view of its experience with nuclear energy. In addition to exploring the possibilities of cooperating in areas of space research and renewable energy, as well as using digital technology to expand their economic relations, both Mongolia and India are also involved in conducting joint military exercises, war games, including an annual bilateral military exercises known as Nomadic Elephant. India has also been providing training facilities to Mongolian defense, peacekeeping and military operations apart from regular consultations between their national security councils on issues of mutual interest in regional and multilateral affairs, including on the subject of terrorism. Yet close cooperation between the two countries at regional security organizations like Shanghai Cooperation Organization and Ulaanbaatar Dialogue Initiative on Northeast Asian Security, I think would provide each other a sense of bonhomie in building confidence and mutual understanding on inter-regional cooperation, which is very, very important. Yet Buddhism as cultural diplomacy or as a soft power tool remains important in foreign policy. And they play a critical role in international relations. In that sense, India and Mongolia are not exceptions in using it. To a great extent today, Buddhism remains at the very front of India's New Asian, or for that matter, Inner Asian outreach, both culturally as well as diplomatically. I thank you, all of you.
Professor Sharad Soni explained Inner Asia. Inner Asia, more focusing on the Mongolia in particular, especially Mongolian relation, specifically focusing on the third neighbor policy, which was developed later, past 10-15 years back. But before that, Mongolia is majorly dependent on the China and Russia. After introducing this third neighbor policy, then Mongolia spread its political, economic, and other aspects with other countries. And then he also talked about democracy and Buddhism in their strategic partnership between India, especially, And then he also talked about tourism, which we all know that Mongolia is one of the most attractive tourist destination. And then also Mongolia has a very rich mineral resources, which is yet to be explored. For that, especially the third neighbors countries are looking at. And then finally, he also talked about Buddhism as a soft power diplomacy. The Mongolia, which alliance with other countries like India, used it in the past. So with this, I request Dr. Mahesh Debata.
Thank you, Chair. And at the outset, let me thank Dean Sir and the organizing team for this wonderful opportunity to speak on such an important subject. And I feel and I argue that Inner Asia matters, especially for India. And for that, a few slides I have made. And correctly, the previous speaker and the chair, they have spoken about the geographical area of the Inner Asian region. It consists of 9 countries, but the most important part are the Pakistan and China, who are in our northern neighborhood. They are nuclear powers, and they have also unleashed 5 wars against India in the last 7 decades. Pakistan 4 and China 1, in addition to the Galwan class 5 years ago. And if you look at the post-Cold War scenario in that region, disintegration of erstwhile Soviet Union that led to the end of Cold War, and the region became a theater of competition and conflict among the regional and the global actors. And there are geopolitical, geostrategic and geoeconomic issues are there. But the most important issue was the natural resources of the region, abundant natural resources that includes energy, oil, natural gas, uranium, hydroelectricity. In addition to that, minerals, more than 200 minerals are found there in this. And the most important, last but not the least, is the security concern in the region. The region in the post-Soviet space has become a security, a very critical security situation there. The situation has been jeopardized by security problems, non-traditional security threats in particular. And why the Inner Asia region is important for India, and then we should think of India's interest in the region. The first and foremost is the single largest factor is China, and you all people know that Chinese strategic tentacles across South Asia and the entire region spanning South and Central Asia through massive capital investment and strategic and defense cooperation with a number of countries there, and trying to contain India through the string of pearls strategy, and also to fish in the troubled waters of Indian Ocean through the China-Pakistan economic corridor, which has become an important segment of the Belt and Road Initiative. And India's endeavor to diversify its energy resources because of the crisis in the Middle East in the early 90s. And particularly, India is dependent on the uranium resources from Mongolia, Kazakhstan, and Uzbekistan for its energy security. And the third important factor, I'm repeating again, the precarious security situation in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Xinjiang of China region that led India to think about its interest in Inner Asia. And India's that also prompted Indian government to have Act North engagement, particularly of the Act East policy devised by the Modi government, and they understood the post-Cold War realities, and they also thought about the more than 2,000-year-old civilizational linkage with the region, and that age-old relationship was transformed into a new age economic security and strategic cooperation partnership in the last few years. And India joining Shanghai Cooperation Organization regional mechanism in 2017, that also opened up the India's interest in the region. As 4 of the Inner Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and they are members of SCO, and Afghanistan and Mongolia, they have been the observer members of the organization. And the mainstay of India's Act North policy were the strategic partnership agreements with these countries, energy cooperation, connectivity, and security cooperation, and as rightly pointed out by the previous speaker about the soft powers of India. So, as rightly pointed out by the previous speaker, that Prime Minister Modi was the first Prime Minister to visit Mongolia in the last few years, particularly since the establishment of India-Mongolia diplomatic relationship, and then also his Central Asian sojourn in July 2015, visiting all the 5 Central Asian countries and finding and to how to nurture the Indian interest in the region. And that reminds me one interesting story about Chinese Prime Minister Li Peng, who visited all these 5 countries in 1993, long back. And now the result, you know, that China has become an important, perhaps the major force to reckon with in the region, with having more than $120 billion of trade with the country. So Prime Minister Modi in 2018's Shanghai Cooperation Summit talked about security for our citizens, economic development for all, connecting the region, unite our people, respect for sovereignty and integrity, and also environment protection issues. If you look at the strategic partnership agreements, which are a long-term interaction between 2 countries or multiple countries based on political, economic, social, and historical factors, manifesting itself in a variety of relationships. India has at present strategic partnership with more than 30 countries, including 4 inner Asian countries, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Afghanistan, and Mongolia. Kazakhstan, in fact, the first inner Asian neighbor to be strategic partner of India, and we signed a strategic SPA with the president of Kazakhstan in long back in January 2009, and that resulted in a substantial amount of uranium we have been getting from Kazakhstan since 2009. The joint action plan devised during the meeting between Indian and the Kazakh leaders, they talked about furthering strategic partnership between India and Kazakhstan, and they also agreed for expansion of mutually beneficial cooperation while adhering to their existing obligations under multilateral nuclear regimes. And then we have the strategic partnership agreement with Uzbekistan in 2011. And also before that, we had SPA with Afghanistan. And the main broad contours of India-Uzbekistan strategic partnership agreement was the joint working group on defense cooperation, military assistance and training and capacity building were the main issues of this cooperation. And in addition to that, sharing of intelligence, interaction between military officials, and the defense cooperation became, I mean, it was further during India's defense minister's visit to Tashkent in November 2019. There are number of MOUs in the field of military education and also medicine. India also developed a state-of-the-art IT complex in Armed Forces Academy of Uzbekistan in Tashkent, and there was a first defense industry workshop in Tashkent in the year 2019 also. And the bonhomie between the Indian Prime Minister and the Uzbek President also is great, and there have been a regular contact between these 2 countries and the regular exchange of high-profile visits between the 2 countries. And then India and Afghanistan SPA was signed in 2011, and India was Afghanistan's first SPA was signed with the most important highlight of this SPA was that Afghanistan's first such SPA with any foreign country. And there was a strong convergence over regional security, shared threat from terror infrastructure in and around the region, and The also India Mongolia SPA also was signed in 2015. The previous speaker has already spoken about this. I will not repeat it again. But this is guided by the universally recognized principles of sovereign equality of states, and also within the ambit of the principles of the UN Charter. So, and the second most important after SPA was energy cooperation between between India and the countries in the region, particularly Kazakhstan, then Uzbekistan and Afghanistan, and also Mongolia. It was a long-term, sustained and meaningful cooperation on energy resources and trade of natural resources. And that became an important component of the partnership between India and the generation countries, because we understand well that there is difficulties in getting hydrocarbon resources from the region over land through pipelines. We have failed TAPI is failed. IPI we could not be able to it could not see the light of the day, and we all know that more than 24 indigenously built pressurized heavy water reactors of India, they need nuclear energy, and that is why the cooperation is imminent. The nuclear energy we must understand why we are dependent on, why we are looking at Asian countries for the nuclear energy resources. Because Kazakhstan has 12% of world's total uranium reserves. It is the leading producer of uranium 2009, and it also, at present, as per the latest data, it produces nearly 43% of the world's total now, and Mongolia has a reserve to the tune of 1.39 million tons of uranium. Uzbekistan is the 7th largest producer of uranium in the world. Hence, we had nuclear energy cooperation with Kazakhstan. We had signed one MOU with Kazakhstan and Mongolia also. Then there is cooperation also in the field of peaceful use of radioactive minerals and nuclear energy. And in 2015, more meaningful and result-oriented energy cooperation with Kazakhstan in July 2015 and with Mongolia in May 2015. India's Department of Atomic Energy and the other companies in these countries, they have signed a lot of agreements, MOUs, to how to strengthen the cooperation between the two countries. Kazakhstan, between 2015 and 2019, supplied some 5,000 tons of uranium, catering to almost 80% of India's uranium need. And nuclear energy development agreements with Uzbekistan also we are thinking of, because it is the 7th largest uranium producer. We are thinking, and perhaps we are also getting some. I don't have the data to provide you, but similarly, India and Afghanistan, before the Taliban take over in August 2021, they had mulled over a high level of institutionalized dialogue on access to and development of Afghanistan natural resources, particularly oil and mining sectors, and the substantial amount of uranium discovered in the Helmand province. And the third most important factor is connectivity. The biggest challenge for us with this region is we do not have the direct geographical linkage. That is perhaps the disadvantage. And sincere endeavor by the successive governments since 1991, and they have been trying how to do away with the geographical disadvantage. There are several connectivity initiatives. Chabahar has become the port of promise, and there are air freight corridor between Kabul and Kandahar, New Delhi and Mumbai. India also joined the Ashgabat agreement in 2018, so that it will have something with regard to connectivity. And the most important is the INSTC, the International North-South Trade Corridor with Iran, Oman, Russia, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan. And the last important factor is security cooperation. Post-Soviet phase, the region witnessed a serious non-traditional security threat. So India, Uzbekistan, then India, Kazakhstan, India, Kyrgyzstan, India, they signed a number of agreements with regard to the how to spruce up their security cooperation, and then the India-Mongolia security cooperation, and my previous speaker has highlighted a little bit, and I will not repeat it again. And India-Afghanistan also, even though in the last 4 or 5 years the relationship has seen low, but the government is trying, and the recent visit of our foreign secretary to meet the Afghan leader in some other place, it's also is a ray of hope for how to build our relationship with Afghanistan, so that we will get from Chabahar we can enter into Afghanistan. Perhaps even I was speaking to one of my friends who told me that it was difficult to go to Central Asia through Afghanistan from 2001 to 2021 because Taliban was the bigger challenge. But now if Taliban supports you, then there is a possibility from Chabahar you can enter into, because we have built the infrastructure there in Afghanistan. And the last but not the least is the soft power, and as rightly pointed out by my previous speakers, that we have a strong historical, cultural, civilizational linkage with this region for the last 2000 years, and we perhaps think that culture matters the most at the present juncture. PM Modi, a few years ago, he talked about 4 commonalities when he talked about our relationship with the Inner Asian region. He talked about common interests, common issues, common heritage, and common historical space. And culture can become the fulcrum of contact, cooperation, and coordination with these friendly neighbors. And admiration, respect, and friendliness for each other as the basis of people-to-people contact can also happen. And then that also we have seen during the the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, we provided humanitarian help, medical equipment, vaccine to all these countries in the region. And the major takeaways of my presentation is that India considers Inner Asia neighbors as India's extended, immediate, and near, and the northern neighbors. They have been important from strategic, economic, and security angles. The new India under Prime Minister Modi feels and thinks it wise to reach out to the Inner Asian countries, revive our historical cultural linkages, reinvigorate new avenues of cooperation, and to reap maximum dividend for India. Though not on great financial terms, but on strategic point of view and also from the energy angle, India is gaining their confidence day by day. India is now rebuilding the faith and trust in the minds of the Inner Asian people as well as leaders, and having an image makeover. India has to cash in on the unwavering faith by the people and political leaders of Inner Asia. The waning influence, this is important, waning influence of the PRC, the People's Republic of China, the resistance in the Central Asian region, particularly by Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan, against the Chinese excesses in the region can be a boon in disguise. And finally, the need of the hour is to extend the Connect Central Asia policy to Connect Inner Asia policy. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Sharad explained Inner Asia from Professor Mahesh explained Inner Asia from Indian perspective, and on the other side, Professor Sharad Soni explained Inner Asia from the Mongolian perspective. So I'm, without wasting any time, because we have left very limited time, only 10 minutes left, so I open it for question answer.
Sir, how would you define the geopolitical conception of Inner Asia and how it is different from Central Asia? Because Inner Asia as a geopolitical term originated mostly in 19th century because of the Anglo-Russian rivalry, and it was popularized by Denis Sainor and O.L. Latimer, the pivot to Asia in 1952. How do you think the pivot to Asia conception of Inner Asia by O.L. Latimer is relevant now, especially in the post-Cold War era? Second point is that when I define Central Asia, I try to locate it in the context of a geopolitical concept again. So, which includes what we call the mostly in the foreign policy annal as a vast space which connects with Europe. So in that context, where you locate these two etymological definitions of Inner Asia and Central Asia. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to put a simple question to Sharad sir. Yeah. To Sharad sir, sir, we are talking again and again about Buddhism as an important foreign policy. Now, India had expelled Buddhism long back, from our land. Now, when you talk about Buddhism as a foreign policy tool, is it India is trying to make amends for that? Is it political use of yet another religion? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Subhashri, and my question would be, other than seeing the region as a mere, an excellent potential trade partner, I think it has an importance of its own. So narrowing down my question, what has been the impact of climate change and other environmental crisis on Mongolia, and how it has affected the agriculture sector, provided that most of the agriculture sector is dependent on livestock rearing. Thank you.
I will start from last question. Climate change. It's an overall phenomenon, but Mongolia has been facing since historical times due to its location in the region, which always remains in minus temperature. The most disastrous, aspect of this disaster known as Jud. Yeah. So Jud, every year, due to Jud, lot of, livestock, they die, and which ultimately impact agriculture also. Mongolian government is trying to, in this sector, recently there has been development. These 5 strategic third neighbor partners, which I mentioned during my talk, they all are helping out, But, this is the natural disaster. We can't do anything, Whenever it happens and how it happens, what type of impact, negative or positive it is exerting, taking all these things into consideration, we have to tackle. So I would put it that way only, Number 2, Buddhism. Your question. I would say, India is exploiting Buddhism as civilizational linkages. It's not only Buddhism. You said Buddhism has gone away from India. Yes, it has gone away. In what sense? But Buddhists are still there in India, and so is Buddhism. Lot of literature, Indian literature, which have been translated, first into Tibetan and then from Tibetan to Mongolian, they are still kept in Mongolia. And last year only, India has digitalized, Kanjur and Tanjore volumes, 108 volumes of Kanjur and 226 volumes of Tanjore. And India has distributed in Mongolia, in printed form also, so that it could help. So this is, I would say, it's one of the, elements to explore in our civilization linkages. And I'm not saying Buddhism is going to, dominate the foreign policy aspect. There are many other things, but this is one of the aspects. Now, Dr. Nalin's question, divide between Central Asia and Inner Asia. I think we should not go into deep, at this point of time when we are discussing about restructuring of our essays. Otherwise I would start speaking history because, my background is history. After then I shifted to IR. So I can also discuss. And you took the name of Denis Steiner. He was my teacher. I studied under him in Indiana University. So he gave different concept, Central Eurasia. So it's better not to go into deep. Thank you. Huh? Yeah, exactly. There are so many names. Eurasia, Central Asia, Inner Asia, there are terminologies. Yeah.
Soni is saying that Inner Asia is crucial, is critical, is relevant.
You see, I highlighted during my talk about historical importance of Inner Asia. There are a lot of divides. Nowadays in contemporary times, lot of divides. Inner Asia comes within Central Asia comes within Inner Asia also. So that way, it's basically larger one. Yeah, I said in the beginning of my.
I agree.
Yeah. So that's why it's a terminology which we are using.
No, Inner Asia is...
Even you see, Azerbaijan is included in Inner Asia, but nowhere you will find.
Sir,
Initially, initially in Central Asia, only 5 republics of Central Asia, Azerbaijan and Mongolia, were the part of Central Asia. That's all.
No, I mean, till this integration of the Soviet Union, Inner Asia and Central Asia is synonyms. After 99, it used. No, it is.
Soviet used to treat Inner Asia
When you refer the Latimer and Denis,
No, Nalin was right, sir. Latimer used the Inner Asia word.
Look, I would just request, please speak in the mic. It's everything is being
Yeah,
recorded.
yes.
And I am treating this as an academic engagement. If this is something else, then let us know.
And please take charge.
yeah, okay.
Whoever has to speak in the mic.
Okay.
And surely the chairperson of the center has to regulate the commentary.
Yes, sure.
I request that.
Soviet used to call Central Asia as Central Asia wo Kazakhstan. Means they never included Kazakhstan in Central Asia. Central Asia and Kazakhstan. This is because of the Eurasian identity which we have discussed in the previous session. So my view is that in a different context we have to study differently different regions in a different way also. So this is my approach actually.
And just connect to the Buddhism aspect. You said that Buddhism is extinct or expelled from India. Generally, outside India, when we see outside, especially in China, I have noticed the Chinese, every time stating that Buddhism is died out. There is no Buddhism in India. So in that context, there was another Indian, who questioned the Chinese. Yes, if Buddhism Buddhism could have been really popular, it would have not been, because it could have not been popular, because if it had been popular, it could not have been died out. So on the contrary, the other Chinese give a forged proposition. It's important for academic research and study, where he said that the particular person who left one point, he may add this term also to finish the entire proposition. He said that unless, of course, it is murder. So this is one proposition outside India, everywhere, especially in China, that I've noticed. So next, I will again invite question.
Explanation of dichotomy between Inner Asia and Central Asia. The fruit of cashew nut hangs from the tree. The kernel is outside the fruit. If you remember, if you can recall that fruit, the analogy of the same fruit is the relationship between Central Asia and Inner Asia. I'll give you just one explanation to it, because etymologically the query has been put forth. The Central Asia is basically a geopolitical connotation, essentially used by the empires who built around the Turco-Persian hemisphere, which actually extends up to North-South Asia, means the Pakistan, Northwest India. You can say these are the areas which actually traditionally the Mughals, the Turks, the Lodhis, who drew their all kind of human resource from the region. That was the ontological basis of Central Asia. To it, appended in the north was a larger Mongolian, or you can say Mongoloid hemisphere, where Xinjiang, Tibetan, or even for that matter the areas of Siberia and Russia. And that was the hemisphere of Inner Asia, which largely was something a kind of a supplemental to the idea of Central Asia. And the Mongoloid sphere, like a kernel, the fruit, it actually supplemented. They were not at juxtaposition or an alternative to it, but the anthropological extension where you can see that how the Turco-Mongol entire domain is spread. So that analogy is somewhere you should see that how Central Asia and Inner Asia basically complement each other. Thank you.
We end the session because time is already over. And I express thanks to Professor Sharad Soni and Dr. Mahesh Debata for their nice presentation, and the audience who have engaged in a brainstorming session at the moment, at the last of this paper. So with this, I thank everyone for your kind and cooperation. Thank you, sir.
We take a couple of minutes for a changeover.